Our topic today is going to be related to sports gambling and how prevalent it's become.
You see these commercials like crazy on all sports now.
I find it interesting how there's all these disclaimers all the time.
This did not used to be the case not that long ago in this country.
Hello and welcome to the Pop Culture Contrarian with Thomas, Sterling, and Andrew.
Hello.
Hey guys.
Our topic today is going to be related to sports gambling and how prevalent it's become. Thomas, you want to give us the news story that kind of brought this to the light?
Yeah, last week the FBI broke the story that they had arrested a number of individuals relating to a crime gambling ring.
This is an illegal gambling operation and sports rigging operation that spanned the course of years.
It included some pretty big names in the NBA world. The current coach.
He's a Hall of Famer, too.
Yeah, Hall of Famer. He's with the Portland Trail Blazers, Chauncey Billups. A current player, Terry Rozier, who plays for the Miami Heat. And then a former player, Damian Jones. And they're all involved in this sports gambling thing with, unsurprisingly, the mafia.
Surprised? Well, shame on you.
It's like a movie.
It is. That when you start reading, you're like, holy cow.
You know, just for the flavor, throwing it in, it's interesting because we've got this story, which is, it's like a movie, just like you said.
Yeah.
And we've also, just in last week, we had the Louvre heist.
Oh, I
where
know.
Napoleon's crown jewels were stolen.
Yeah.
It's, Ocean's movies going on left and right now.
If you watch any sports, you see these commercials like crazy for gambling on all sports now. Mm-hmm. This did not used to be the case not that long ago in this country. I guess it goes back to a Supreme Court decision regarding allowing all states, if you have some states that made it legal, then all states should be able to also make it legal. And that's basically what the Supreme Court decided. And so then it's just kind of become legal everywhere. Gambling has long been kind of known as a vice, especially in America's early history. And really up until just recently, there's always kind of been a negative connotation with it. Sin City in Las Vegas, or Las Vegas is known.
Created by the mob.
The mob.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The house always wins. Mm-hmm. So it obviously is a money-making scam or scheme.
Yeah.
Now, some people do make some money gambling, but generally speaking, those who host the gambling are the biggest winners. And that's kind of evident within this scandal because part of this is not only maybe rigging of some of the play in these NBA games, but that's kind of the secondary. It seems like one of the bigger things is that these sports figures were involved in poker games that were rigged. And their job was get targets to come and play to lose their money.
From what I understand, these were sophisticated technology-backed games with essentially X-ray tables that could see cards and then deploy information to earpieces. And
Yeah, I think it was mentioning like a machine that could calculate how the deck was shuffled and therefore which card went to which player.
Yeah.
It's pretty high-tech stuff.
It was high-tech counting, card counting, which is technically supposed to be illegal. If you were to go to Vegas, technically you can't use any tools or anything to card count. Now, if you're some kind of a genius that you can
do it in your head,
they'll watch you. And if they feel like you are actually engaged in card counting, they'll pull
kick
you.
They'll ban you.
Right. So even if you're just using natural ability, the house always wins, which means they'll just get rid of you.
I don't know how much money is involved in this. Billions, they're saying.
Huge amounts.
Huge amounts.
And people risking NBA careers. I mean, that's significant.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we're talking, in the case of the games, it's like insider information, and throwing the games essentially. Say, oh, such and such isn't going to play, or this person's going to be hurt, or whatever.
Or I'm going to take myself out 5 minutes into the game. Yeah.
Exactly. But then beyond that, as you're saying, the whole poker component of these famous faces, of the NBA using their prowess to bring in
their fan.
unsuspecting dupes.
Yeah. Well, before we get too deep into this, I want to remind you to do something. Go to patriotpost.us and subscribe to our free daily newsletter. It comes out Monday through Friday at noon. That's one of the best ways to support us.
We're betting on you.
We're betting on you. There we go. That's the only bets we partake in usually.
Yes.
The whole concept of sports betting, as you said, it did not used to be a thing. Now it's becoming incredibly prevalent.
Yeah.
This story, it's pretty sensational. Andrew, I think you had some thoughts about this?
Like you said, it has become really popular. There's websites and advertisements all the time. And the NBA has really leaned into this in recent years. And it's become a big part of their marketing campaign as being part of these legal online sports betting platforms. There's sponsorship deals. Frankly, there's a lot more interest in the game if people have, you could say, skin in the game.
Right.
It draws more eyeballs because they're excited to be part of it. They've got something riding on it. Overall, has been aligned as a brand lift for the NBA. You run into something like this with this sports betting situation, and it's very risky for the reputation of the sport, particularly when it comes to fans who are drawn because of this betting element. Imagine you are on one of these sites and doing the bets. You have an idea based on your knowledge of what's going to happen, but someone else, now you're going to question, is there somebody else that is doing something fishy and they're going to throw this game, and I can't trust that this is just sportsmanship odds anymore, as it allegedly was supposed to have been. So you're risking the reputation of the entire sport. You're risking viewership, fans, beyond just the illegal ramifications.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that is a good point about how possibly detrimental this could be to entire sports leagues. I'm not a gambler. I don't think any of us here really are. I've put $10 on a poker game before or something like that, but that's about it. It is tempting. You totally understand. If you're looking forward to a basketball or football game that's coming up in a couple days and you know something about both teams and you feel strongly one team's going to win, why not put $10 on the team that you know in your heart is going to win? It's going to make the game more interesting, as you were saying, and hey, you might win money on it. So it's completely tempting. I think one of the big societal level problems is that you get people who, just like with alcohol, don't know when enough is enough and how much is good for them, and are putting money they can't afford to lose on these bets because they just know they're going to win. And then, of course, the house always wins.
Yeah, the lottery is a good example of this. Where do the vast majority of that lottery money come from? It comes from people who shouldn't be buying lottery tickets. I mean, that's the truth, and it's based upon this hope that they're going to make it big. And so they'll spend money that they could have been using for better things. The lottery is for people who don't know how to do math.
Yeah, it's a tax on those who can't.
Right.
Do it. Yeah.
They've tied it to the state, and they've tied it, even more insidiously, they've tied it to like education.
Right.
So a percentage of all this money that people will spend to get their lotto ticket, they can salve their kind of conscience, I guess, by saying, well, at least money is going for schools.
I think that's a really key point, Thomas, is that specific element, just the lottery itself, the fact that it's a tax on those who can't do math, or especially the poor, the people who need the feeling of, hey, I might be a billionaire next week, or at least a millionaire.
Right.
That's exploitative by itself. But then when you add the element of you're actually supporting the schools, you're actually helping the best and brightest get into the like Tennessee Hope or Georgia Hope scholarships. That's what those are. It's like if you tied, how many drinks you can have at the bar tonight to, how much food goes to the food kitchen. It's like, well, you're incentivizing people to become alcoholics.
Right. The big lottery winners, the ones that have won usually million or several million, their stories, you would think that, because what it offers is this hope and promise of, all your financial hardships will be removed. You'll become wealthy. You'll become, everything you'll ever want to be able to buy, you can buy now. But the reality is, in most cases, these people end up with the money destroying their lives.
Yeah.
A lot of them end up dying young. Some of them murdered. It can tear apart families and stuff over the jealousy of the one having all this money and everybody demanding part of it.
Right.
I mean, there's a whole mess of negativity associated with lottery winners.
And that applies even for people who already had lots of money. When you when you win these massive amounts, it just destroys your life.
Well,
there's maybe an argument for smaller winnings, like winning $10,000. Maybe I don't know the argument there, but you could make one. I mean, for these massive winnings, it's just almost universally a bad thing to have won.
Well, I mean, it kind of brings around, especially in our American culture, when we talk about poverty. Yeah, there are people who are poor because they had no choice and they ended up in a position where they can't seem to get out of it. But generally speaking, in our culture, most poverty is because of poor decisions. People make poor decisions on how to spend money, how to use money, what to do with their time, etc. And they get involved in behaviors that just make it more problematic, like either criminal behavior, so they can't get good jobs, so they have records. Drugs are often involved. What they end up finding themselves in is if they had made better decisions, like I think one of the two things they say that will almost guarantee you a better life is graduate high school and get married.
And don't have a kid before you're married.
Yeah, don't have a kid before you're married. It's amazing how much different a socioeconomic status you end up in just by fulfilling those two things.
Right. Yeah.
So that's kind of an indictment of the lottery system, which has been in place for decades.
Right, but it's still a form of gambling.
But in this case, in this story that we started talking about, one guy lost $1.8 million in a single night of poker. Well, if you can afford to lose $1.8 million in a single night of poker, you're not in financial difficulty, right? So, I mean, what's wrong with this? I mean, come on, guys. Why not let the NBA players take their fans for all they're worth?
Show me the money!
Yeah, I mean...
Sorry, I just had to be devil's advocate.
I know.
Y'all have thoughts on that? Is that a reasonable argument?
Well, if it's stealing...
Yeah.
Oh, stealing is still wrong.
It's one of the top 10 commandments. It's in the 10 commandments.
How many movies and shows do we have about the mafia, what the mafia does, how it leans on people, how it hurts people if they don't pay off what they took from,
Yeah. Well, the organization itself, talking about exploitative, that is their number one function.
Yeah. Right. Exploiting
people. That's how they survive, is exploitation.
Yeah. 4 of the 5 families are involved in this. That's just incredible to me.
Yeah.
I mean, organized crime has long plagued the American culture. I just learned recently that it wasn't until the 1960s, that the U.S. government actually admitted that organized crime even existed in this country.
Wait, they didn't admit it when they arrested Al Capone?
I think officially the government didn't want to recognize the existence of the mob.
Remember, the government tells you everything you need to know, and you can trust the government.
In one sense, it was because they didn't want it, you could argue, glamorized, romanticized, etc.
On the note of glamorizing or romanticizing it, I was about to say, before you got to that point, I was a little bit glad to hear that the mob was getting up to something. Just like they're kind of a classic piece of Americana. You hear about these heroes going into New York City in the 80s and 90s and cleaning it up and making it into a great city by the 2000s. But, I was a little bit too young to really be following the news on that. So for my lifetime, the mob's been pretty quiet. So, they're getting up to sports gambling. At least they're still there. That classic piece of Americana hasn't faded away yet.
Good old American patriots.
I don't know. I think the way we see it most today is drugs.
Yeah. Well, and that's not glamorous. So I think that's exactly right. So I guess what I should have been saying is I'm glad to see them getting up to something that's not drugs. I'll say that.
It's all interconnected somehow, though.
I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is. So that raises another question. So we've seen these sports betting apps and websites like DraftKings or Kalshi and Polymarket, which are they're not necessarily about sports betting, but they're about betting.
You can bet it on just about anything.
Right.
From elections to like schedules of things, When will the government shut down in? 40 days, 45 days?
Every time Trump announces he's going to do something in the world, there's a new bet, will this happen in 2025? And, I can see some argument, like if the presidential election's coming up, I might put some money on the person I want to lose. And then if they win, I get to win money. And if they lose, then the person I voted for wins. So it's a win-win, right?
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard.
How much money did you put on Kamala Harris?
Don't you mean Donald Trump? Just kidding. No, I haven't engaged in any of these. I did while we were preparing for this episode. I looked up Kalshi and I started setting up an account. They wanted my a photo of my ID, which I didn't want to give them, so I stopped there. But it's not too hard to do. You know, it's just like signing up for any website, except you do need that photo ID. And then you can bet on, goodness gracious, all sorts of stuff. But I got to say, if you're not a gambler, if you're not someone who follows this stuff, you don't really have clue one of what you're looking at.
Yeah, it's pretty deep. I find it interesting how there's all these disclaimers all the time on these websites, and especially on the advertisements for them, with like the gambling addiction hotline.
Yeah.
Like, hey, if you're having problems spending all your money and losing it, just like this thing is intended to do to you, then call this line.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that is interesting. I mean, gambling addiction is, I guess, pretty well known. I mean, the addictions we most often reference are drug-related, I think.
It's all related to the same nervous system, or dopamine, basically.
Right. Well, and that's it. We're getting a better grasp on other kinds of addiction other than drug addiction, because that's with social media, with gambling, with there's some other things out there. The thing you're getting, it is a drug hit, but it's a dopamine hit, which your brain makes naturally.
Yeah.
And it incentivizes you to just go back to that well over and over and over
These
again.
are all things that just misuse built-in systems in the human brain.
Yeah, it's it kind of, I guess it kind of hijacks your...
It hijacks them.
Yeah, your emotional...
regulation system. Yeah.
Good way to put it. And
it's the
and then
reward mechanism.
Right. Then it heavily influences your behavior. I guess with the betting stuff, financial ruin is the big thing, but it often, or has, maybe not often is the right word, but it has led to violence and murder.
Sure.
We know that that's part of it, and we know, whenever the mob's involved, that's going to be there.
Well, and anytime, like as we were saying, one of these stories in this poker game, one guy, when I guess we don't know necessarily whether they were cheating in that game, but it was part of the same system. One guy lost $1.8 million in a single night.
Right.
That's more than enough money to murder over. I mean, not that you should, not that anyone should, but that's like if we're talking about murders that happen because of money, 1.8 million is well over the line of how much it takes.
Yeah. And in this case, it is essentially just robbing.
Yeah.
Right.
It's theft. It's theft.
There was zero chance that any of these people were going to walk away and win.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's theft on that part, but it also encourages theft to support the habit, etc. People break into people's homes because they're trying to support their addiction habits, and I mean, gambling could be one. I mean, I feel like this is a theme that, and I'm going to go to Hollywood once again. Hollywood is regularly had characters and shows that involve elements of this, whether it's just as a character that they're not necessarily trying to have any social commentary about, or sometimes it's praising it and sometimes it's showing how damaging and dreadful it is and how you don't want to end up like this person.
It is interesting, just to reference two of those such movies. So there's Maverick, which is a movie I really like with
Mel Gibson.
Mel Gibson, thank you.
Yeah.
And
it's a Western, right?
Yeah, it's late Old West.
Yeah,
so
James
like
Garner,
1890s
Mel
or
Gibson.
something like
Yeah.
that. And that one's lots of fun. It's about a poker tournament, rigged poker game at the end. And of course, Mel Gibson triumphs. But he's been kind of running the table the whole time. So everyone was cheating in this final game. And like throughout the movie, he's constantly cheating people and hustling them. And but the movie justifies it by having all the people he's going up against be worse than him.
It's okay to take advantage of crooks.
Right. You can't steal from a thief.
There's
right?
no honor among thieves.
You can't be racist against a white person. Is that the same logic? I think it's the same logic.
I think that might be the same logic. But
fun fact, I have seen the movie prop costumes for that film in a display at the Wild West History Museum, or Wild West Art Museum in Booth.
They've got some good outfits in that movie.
For Maverick?
Yeah, that among a bunch of others. They had a display there. It's not a permanent display, but side note, I've seen stuff from the movie in real life, so you can think I'm cool now.
I need more than that. I'm going to need more than that.
Well, I think you're cool, Andrew.
Well, thanks, Sterling.
So the other story is Ocean's 11, which does kind of the same thing. The difference is they're not taking advantage of any low ordinary people. They're not rigging poker game. Well, I guess they are at the beginning. Rusty's rigging a poker game. But it's against celebrities. It's, wealthy Hollywood.
It's
types.
okay to take advantage of people if they're rich.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the moral of that story. But then of course,
the Robin Hood comp.
the bad guy in the movie is Terry Benedict, who runs the casinos, and he, is set up early on as being the guy who, if you cross him, he won't just ruin your life, he'll ruin your family members' lives and make them go bankrupt. And it's like, okay, he's a bad guy, so it's okay to take all his money. Yeah. No, that's not actually how that works. But that is how the movie is justified. That's just an interesting example of what you were talking about how Hollywood handles this. Let's talk about how is this going to affect these sports? Mm-hmm. So one thing I've noticed is in college football, that's the one I follow the most closely. I don't necessarily understand it well enough to notice these things at the time because I don't follow the betting side of things. But you'll listen to the announcers and, someone will kick a field goal or actually they'll go for a touchdown when you might have expected a field goal. And the announcers will be like, well, I know a lot of people are very happy that touchdown was just made. And what they're saying is the over-under will have been crossed by that score. And because of it, what you're seeing is, and I checked, and I've seen a few examples of this, but in the Alabama-South Carolina game this past Saturday, Alabama was tied, and all they needed to put it away was pretty much a field goal. They were short on time. They could have run out the clock. Instead, they decided to go for the touchdown on a 3rd and 10, which they get, and they win. As someone who was rooting for Alabama in that game, if they had gone for that touchdown and then screwed it up, and South Carolina had somehow gotten the ball and scored, and Alabama had lost because they were going for that money. The money line, the bet.
Okay.
Instead of just trying to win the game, I would have been really ticked off. That didn't happen, but that is now a risk you face rooting for these teams.
Yeah, I guess that's the question. Will you see, or have we seen, instances of coaches creating strategy to that end?
Right.
Yeah, that does raise questions of the impact of gambling on a game. Like, are the players thinking about it? Are the coaches thinking about it? Are they making decisions based upon that money line? Mm-hmm. I think
if they have insider information and they're being crooks about it, then yes.
Well, has somebody promised them something? I think that's where the corruption angle comes in. That is just going to be very much more present in the sense that this is legal. I mean, already, it's not that sports and betting haven't been a problem in American history. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think baseball is probably most famous for, scandals regarding betting. I mean, Pete Rose. I mean, the reason he's not in the Hall of Fame is because of betting. That. It's just interesting that now we're living in a time where anybody and everybody can bet on sports. Mm-hmm. Hardly anybody bats an eye on it. But I remember growing up, the notion of betting on sports was like, anathema. It was kind of like, that's bad stuff. And now here we are. I think there's probably an entire generation growing up going, really? You guys thought it was bad? What's up?
I think that's an excellent point, Thomas, because there have been, I guess, a decaying of some of these cultural norms we had that prevented these kind of things. In even my lifetime, I'm only 31, but like in my lifetime, I've watched the city I live in go from you can't buy alcohol on Sundays to just in the past 6 years or so, you can buy alcohol on Sundays. And it's just every time, I'll be grabbing a 6-pack or whatever, and I'm about to get to the checkout and I'm like, oh crap, it's Sunday. And then it doesn't matter, and it's just strange because when I was a kid, I do remember gambling still being just, only degenerates gamble.
Is it worth looking at social norms and questioning some of those social norms and maybe re-examining them, saying, should we have these or not? Sure. Mm-hmm. But I do think there's also maybe more thought needs to be going into why did these things become social norms in the first place? Why were these kind of rules developed in the first place?
Well, the Bible talks about this, and so does Jordan Peterson in different words. But essentially, the saying is, don't move ancient walls.
Mm-hmm.
Boundaries, because, and Peterson put it this way, you don't know what monsters they're holding back that your ancestors did.
Right.
Mm.
And to some end, there are problems that people who came before us knew about and put in place buffers against those safeguards to protect subsequent generations from those problems. But then there comes a time where we haven't experienced the negative effects for long enough that we're like, oh, what's the problem with this? You know,
It's restrictive. It's getting in my way.
precisely.
So here's a thought-provoking question, maybe, I hope. You can bet, as I said, on places like Polymarket or Kalshi on just about anything that could happen. You can probably bet on solar flares, for all I know.
Yeah.
Astronomical events. You can bet on anything. Do you think, as people are increasingly starting to bet on political elections, do you think you're going to see a politician throw a race in your lifetime?
Oh, no. Here's the reason why.
Yeah.
Power is more valuable than any amount of money.
Well, if you got into the race because you wanted the power in the first place, if you get into the race as a spoiler, intending to get those votes and then lose and rake in the cash.
That sounds like an awful lot of trouble for just some money.
Yeah, no, that's conspiracy level stuff that requires a level of commitment by a number of people.
The amount of organization behind that would just be immense.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, hopefully it doesn't happen, but the point is you are building the incentive structure to facilitate that.
Right. Power, I think, trumps money because power has almost the ability to just willingly just accumulate money in a way that, they say money buys power, which is true. If you have enough money, you can corrupt politicians for your benefit, right? Those in authority. So there is power with money, but those who are already in power, maybe they would like more money, sure, but usually they're not going to give up their power for money.
Well, let me alter the hypothetical here. So instead of someone who was going to win throwing the race, what if you have a three-way race like in New York City right now?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So you have Zoran Mamdani, and he's in the lead, and then you have Andrew Cuomo, and say there's a bet, I'm sure you can do this, will Cuomo get more or less than 25% of the vote?
Yeah, I've seen stuff like that.
Sure. So if you're betting that he won't get 25% of the vote, then suddenly you have an incentive to support the third candidate, Curtis Sliwa, and try to make sure he gets more of the vote, just to make sure, or even Mamdani, just make sure that Cuomo gets 24% instead of 25% of the vote, and then you get more money. So I'm just...
Well, in that instance, but are you talking about would the politician themselves be involved in it?
So in that scenario, I guess the politician wouldn't be involved, but what you would have is some very perverse incentives on our democratic election process.
Oh yeah, I think that already exists and probably has been applied. Well, in fact, I think politicians have kind of tried to do that. We're basically offering some type of freebie for going out and voting. Wink, wink for me.
Is there a burger component to this? Different commentary.
Yeah.
But
is that about COVID?
Yes.
Getting the burger and fries if you get vaccinated?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, but an appropriate
Right. Yeah. I wonder if Kalshi and Polymarket might exacerbate that problem and this kind of betting on elections make it a different or transmute the problem into something it hadn't been before.
Yeah, I could conceive of something along those lines but I think it probably tends to be more the wealthy who already have money and how they're going to use that money in regards to a specific politician maybe. I was reading a recent article, Joe Manchin, who was doing a podcast, and he was talking about the pressure he would receive when he was resisting voting for the Build Back Bigger bill.
Yeah.
The pressure campaign that was mounted against him, like people were hired like for $15 an hour to stand outside his house and raise chaos and yell and call for him to vote for this thing, but then also the death threats that he was receiving.
Right.
I mean, and so there's somebody incentivizing and paying for these people to do. That's what he said. He's like, this was organized. This wasn't just grassroots suddenly uprising. This was an organized effort to pressure him into voting a certain way. Those are the troubling things that I wish we could investigate more in regarding politics and try to get out of our politics because, but that's the hard thing because you have these people with power and money and then we'll use it to try to get their way.
So you're saying maybe that in politics, at least, the problem is it's already bigger than betting, and probably the betting won't shift things one way or another.
I tend to think. I mean, look at this one scandal here, And even with the mafia, organized crime, one of the things that we have noted is the amount of wealth politicians accumulate in office. And one of the reasons they accumulate so much wealth is they're making the laws specifically regarding things like, I don't know, Wall Street. And strangely enough, they end up
their
with a lot
husbands
of money.
and wives who are investing, and they just happen to have a really good sense of the stock market.
Evidently, they all seem to have a really good sense of the stock market, right? Making the right moves right before laws change. Interesting.
Yeah.
Is there a betting component to that we can get in on?
Yeah, that's
or
good.
them odds. Nancy Pelosi.
But in that sense, that seems like I can see how there's a justification for the criminal activity based upon seeing how legally we have officials in our government that seem to take advantage of a system, legally speaking, where they have
It is
potential
interesting
insider knowledge.
to see the through lines of the illegal versus legal and seemingly almost the same activity.
Yeah, so I was wondering, what's our takeaway here? Is it that, sports betting is an interesting thing that's taking off, and it probably should do with some regulation, but in one sense, it's just a minor version of something that's already legalized and practiced all over the country all the time anyway.
All I'm seeing happen with the legalizing of it is now government has more of a hand in it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that lowers the hand that the mafia has in it? The mob?
No, I think the mob, more than anything, tries to figure out and blend legal versus illegal constantly, because it's always laundering its earnings and all this other stuff, and it wants to have a legitimate front and have legitimate businesses like crazy. Well, if you can start making more illegitimate businesses legitimate, I think there's probably a lot of politicians who are bought off, some politicians who are bought off by people in organized crime or have an impact with people in organized crime.
It seems
it's either
almost,
those or corporations. So
well, in either case, it seems impossible that there aren't. I mean, we have enough politicians in this country. The idea that none of them owe their allegiances to the mob or a corporation or something like that.
We'll put it this way: we see politicians support what I would say are objectively bad legislation, objectively bad bills, and these people aren't dumb. They're not stupid, most of them. Why would they make a stand why would they stand for some of these things that are demonstrably bad, that we can just easily trace, logically speaking, this is not good, unless it's going to benefit some certain folks in a certain way. Either they're getting pressured positively or negatively to support something. I feel like that. I mean, I think the Joe Manchin example is just one example in which pressure campaigns can be mounted against a certain politician if he tries to take a stand against something on a principle, and he's going to feel it negatively from those who want him to vote a certain way. I mean, that's just one politician.
Yeah. Well, it's either that or there's certain people in power in this country who just hate it and want it torn down, which that would be crazy, wouldn't it?
Adam Silver advocated when he first became the commissioner of the NBA. When he first became commissioner, was advocating for legalizing sports betting because he said
back in 2014.
Yeah, he said it'd be better regulated and more oversight.
Clearly, there's either not enough regulation, or maybe it's just not a good thing.
I think that's where I'm falling on this, Andrew. Is I guess I would frame it this way, to use a buzzword: do we want to normalize for kids growing up the idea that adults are just spending lots of money betting on things and not actually doing? I mean, is that a virtue we want to instill in our kids? The idea that you can get rich or ruin your life just by placing a bet online instead of, actually going out and doing something with your life?
Like working
hard or even, I mean,
you know what's ironic about this? In order to be well-versed enough to understand what you're doing in betting, like you've just experienced today, you actually have to put some time and effort into understanding the thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, you don't need to do this.
Right.
You could do the same in like starting a business to actually create value and actually have a real shot at wealth.
Or understand finance legally, like with the stock market or something, and invest in a business. Maybe the bets should be, will the NBA last, a decade from now because of this?
Yeah.
Seriously, to my earlier point, this is a matter of reputation.
Yeah.
And it degrades the sportsmanship and entertainment value when that trust is lost.
Right.
Trust is very hard to gain back. We see it all the time when these scandals come out for any number of reasons, and brands, especially things that you buy that aren't necessary, entertainment, money is hard to come by. People don't have a lot of money right now, and your attention is so incredibly, eyeballs, attention is the currency of the 21st century.
Yeah.
So when you lose that, you're losing a lot more than meets the eye.
Yeah, and you might not get it back. That's our episode on sports betting and this NBA scandal, and even a little bit about politics and what the mob may or may not be doing there.
Forget about it.
Forget about it. This has been the Pop Culture Contrarians, Thomas, Sterling, and Andrew. We are brought to you by the Patriot Post, which is the oldest conservative news digest on the web. It's right and it's free. Go like and subscribe to that. And if you're watching this on YouTube, hit that bell icon so you see when we upload a new video. Wherever you're watching this podcast or listening to it, make sure to leave us a comment, hit that like button, let us know what you want us to talk about next, and we look through those comments, and we have talked about things specifically because you've recommended it. So keep it up, and we'll keep it up on our end. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
See you guys.